many fans you are in the chat.
All right, everyone, welcome to MDG Media. This is European Tour stop number 3. We're here at the Krokhol Open, about a half hour south of Oslo, Norway, at the number 2 rated course in the world. I'm your host, Nate Perkins, and I'm here. You guys know him, Elias Luukkonen.
What up, guys? Very nice to be here. Another exciting EUROTOUR event, and as we look at the players that we have got today, no surprises here. Paul McBeth, 6-time world champion, continuing his European tour. It's very nice to see him out here in Europe.
And Øyvind is your Norwegian champion. He just took that event down last weekend, I believe. And of course, silver Lätt, no stranger to the EUROTOUR, ranked 3rd through 2 events right now.
Yeah, very strong forehand player. Actually, arguably one of the best forehand players in the whole entire world. And as we take a look, Jakub Semerád, another very hot player, actually ranked 1st on the EUROTOUR right now. He's coming off a very good finish at both Konopiste and Pro Forester, and looking forward to replicate that on this beautiful course.
All right, hole 1 is honestly one of the tougher par 3s on the course. 133 meters, but it ascends about 8 meters from tee to green. You have this steep hill, slopes down. There is some OB right, but the OB left really comes into play if you try and attack this pin. So most of the field is actually going to play this opening hole for par.
Yeah, it's a very tricky hole if you're trying to go for the green, since going for the green requires a high-speed driver, but a high-speed driver has the tendency to fade really sharp into the hillside, which if you hit the hillside on the right side, you're very likely to roll down. But if you hit it on the left side of the basket, you're almost certain to skip OB left.
Sponsored by Discraft from Huntington Beach, California, Mr. Paul McBeth.
So Paul has not been flawless thus far on his European tour. He actually struggled in that final round at Konopiste last week.
Yeah, very surprising to see, because especially in Pro Forester, Paul played incredible. He's going with a low shot, as you said there, really taking out that risk of going OB, and just hits it to the front of the hillside. And that's a good place to get your par, or maybe just get a bit of a run for the birdie.
And Øyvind loves to lean on this steep hyzer release. He really loves the stiletto, just on a knife hyzer angle, doesn't he?
Yeah, for sure, and I'm sure we'll see one of those right here. As you can see, going really wide. Actually, it looks like he's also playing kind of at the bottom of the hillside, which is mostly a play for par. As you see, that steep hyzer angle hitting the hillside and rolling down. But that's just fine, still should be a pretty easy par from there. And actually what's good to note is that we had a great gallery out there today. I think there was at least 300 people coming out to watch these incredible players. It's really cool to see. It's, I think, the biggest gallery we've had this year so far.
Yeah, and Øyvind said it was actually the biggest gallery he's ever seen in the country of Norway. And it was 350 strong on Friday, and I believe we got word that they sold 1,000 tickets for Saturday and Sunday.
From Schleswig, the Czech Republic, and Team Latitude 64, Mr. Jakub Semerád.
As we saw, Silver also went with a safe play to the right of the basket. You can really see these guys are just looking to get the par on this first hole. It's certainly not a hole that many people are going to birdie. Let's see if Jakub can show us the way. He's actually also going with a wide, safe route. So quite conservative on this first hole. I'm almost a little bit surprised that nobody went for the green here.
And these approach shots that they have coming up aren't necessarily the easiest shot, especially if you're at the bottom of the hill. It's, 10 meters above you, and then you have this kind of strong right to left wind that makes it difficult.
Yeah, Øyvind here might not even see the basket actually, since the hill is so steep, but he makes it good. You can see the slight wind trying to push the disc left, but good layups there from Øyvind and Jakub. Let's see if Silver tries to give it a bit of a run. Not quite. But that's a good play, just getting that par on the first hole.
McBeth right at 20 meters here, slightly uphill. All right, and after our 4 competitors are there for their 3, we just had 5 players card a birdie 2 during the opening round. Elias, you were one of those birdies. How'd you do it?
Yeah, it's quite simple. Just throw a fast driver. I actually went with a PD, a fast fairway driver, and just try to hit it hard, slightly on the right side of the basket and land it soft. Made the putt from about 6 meters. But yeah, not really. I guess not really a great play for everybody to go for the green. It takes a really precise shot, and there's a lot of risk as we move on to the hole 2.
All right, par 4, 202 meters. We are continuing to climb this hill here. Ideal tee shot crests the hill where these players are standing and gets up to the flat. There is OB all along the right side of the fairway. And there's a dense rough on the left side, no OB over there, but then this OB kind of comes in and wraps around the circle here. This is going to start our theme out here at Krokhol. Every basket here, Elias, seems to have so much rollaway potential.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of the most difficult putting courses I have ever played. It seems like on every green you're kind of scared for something. Let's see, Paul going with a regular turnover drive here. Looks like a understable driver to me. That's just a perfect spot. If you're further left on this fairway, that opens up more of the backhand flat to fading shot, but if you're further right, then it opens up more of the forehand approach. Looks like Øyvind is kind of fading towards the woods. That's certainly not ideal, actually. He's gonna have a look from there to get to the fairway, but no look for the birdie, I don't think.
Yeah, that was a flippy force for Paul, Rive for Øyvind, and I believe Silver is going Grace here. And that is a quality angle from Silver. That's an ideal position up onto the flat.
Yeah, very good. And with his sidearm skills, I'm sure he's very happy with that position. As the green slightly favors either a fading sidearm, because that hits the hillside with a fade, or a very soft landing backhand. And Jakub also with a decent drive. He's on the left side of the fairway, so probably will be going with a backhand.
Yeah, Jakub kind of smoked that Rive. Taking a look at the gallery there, headed up this hill. Everyone wants to get a peek at Paul McBeth. And Øyvind in a tough spot, but finds a gap. And he'll be putting from the middle of circle 2 there.
Yeah, it's a great shot from there, but a very tough putt to run with a sloped green. As we see Silver going with that signature forehand, pulls it a bit wide. That's really easy to do on this hole, because with a forehand you want to land slightly below the basket on the left, because below the basket on the left it is not quite as sloped, so the disc has less rollaway potential. And Paul with the hyzer trying to slide it down to the basket. That's looking great. Perfect shot. Good control. Perfect angle control. matching the grade of the hillside with the angle of the disc. That was great.
Jakub from a few steps in front of Paul. He's looking to match that hillside as well, and he has done it. That is an ideal approach.
Yeah, you can see Jakub leaning on that overstable, I believe, a harp, which he throws so often on those approaches. Let's see if Silver wants to run this. Looks like he does. That's a respectable effort. It's kind of scary even on this screen, even though it seems like there's a good backstop, but if you hit the cage or top band and roll, you have a lot of potential to go far downhill.
Oh, so Paul actually skated a little long 7-meter putt here. And he connects. Great way to start the round.
Yeah, that was very good. And one thing to note also, as a player, these Latitude baskets seem a little bit wider than regular baskets. So I feel like it almost gives a little bit more putting confidence since the basket looks so big. And it's a rare basket. We almost never play on Latitude baskets. I think it might be one of the only ones all year. And we saw a great birdie tap in from Jakub there. So a perfectly played hole from him, and a couple of pars from Øyvind and Silver.
Yeah, we got a pretty short walk up the hill. We're headed into the dense pine forest here. There are a few of these really tight par 3s. This one might be the most difficult. Only 95 meters, but you can see the gap is maybe 3 meters across the entire way. And we're kind of up on this spine here. So if you hit early, you could head right and be in jail, or you could head left and you could actually head down the cliff where they have relief for you. It's not out of bounds, but it might as well be because you are in jail. You really need to focus and hit this gap here.
Yeah, certainly. It's an insanely tough gap to hit, but also if you fade out even a little bit at the end of the flight, you're going to be going down the said hill. As we saw Paul going with something slightly understable to hopefully remove that fade from the flight. He turns it just a bit over, but stays in the fairway, and that's a pretty okay spot to be. That's brutal. That's exactly what we were talking about. He kicked hard left, and that disc could either be down the hill, or if he got a little bit lucky, it could have stayed almost near the fairway.
Yeah, all three of our players just kind of pulling it a little bit. Oh, and Øyvind sneaks through that right side, and he's going to have an uphill putt for his birdie.
You can see there's this little wall on the left side of the basket at about 4 meters, trying to hopefully keep some of those skipping shots inside the circle. As we saw Silver with a forehand, as is expected from him, but just slightly fading out, and you can just see how tight this gap is. None of these players really able to hit it perfectly.
Got a Joey Tamale sighting there. He's filming the Paul McBeth EUROTOUR documentary. And it is really hard to save your par from where Jakub landed.
Yeah, for sure. And you can see he had to just pitch towards the fairway and still have a slightly difficult approach from here. This actually requires pretty good speed control here, which he does nicely. So that's only going to be a bogey. There's a lot worse that could happen on this hole.
McBeth also with a jump putt layup here. Yep. Checks it up inside the bullseye. We got a couple putts for birdie. Silver at the edge of circle 2 here. Oh, he actually skated down the hill a little bit. No putt, just has to flick it up there. Our last chance for birdie is Øyvind from just inside. Bang! Up and in it into the headwind.
Wow, that was pretty. And really ballsy putt since there's a big drop-off behind the basket from that angle.
And Øyvind puts so hard, too.
Yeah, that looked really, really confident, and I'm sure he's gonna get a huge boost to his putting for the rest of the round.
So, one bogey there from Jakub, one birdie from Øyvind, a couple pars, and we have a really short walk down the hill to the tee of hole 4. And it is honestly one of the signature holes on the property. Downhill, 148 meter par 3. This gap right here is a little staggered. Most players are going to try and swing something stable out through this gap, and you're going to fly out over the out of bounds and then try and swing something back late. The early gap off the tee really gets into your head, because if you hit and you kick right, you're kicking out of bounds. If you kick left, you're in the woods. So it is really one of those holes where if you hit the gap, it could be clean, it could be easy. If you don't, you're going to be scrambling for your single bogey, and it's like really quick double.
Yeah, exactly. And guys, don't be confused by the distance 148 meters. It plays much closer to maybe 110. You can see many players going with a overstable fairway driver of sorts here, as we see Øyvind doing, fading just slightly left side of the basket, and he hit the gap perfectly, but as you can see, he had a lot of speed and height on the disc, causing it to fade far left. But that is a decent result on this very difficult hole.
A little early out of the hand for Paul, and he finds that middle tree, kicks left. I wonder what kind of lie he's going to have.
Yeah, that looked awful. And it's such a perfectly placed middle tree, because it don't you to go around it, as we see Silver playing it very wide. This disc needs to be very overstable at the end to make it back to the inbounds area.
Yep, and it doesn't quite make it back in, and that is one of the dangers. Now he's going to have to throw his third from way back in the fairway.
Yes, and Jakub probably likes this hole very much since he loves his overstable flex shots. Hits the gap good, but unfortunately fades out a little bit early. You can see the very overstable disc he was throwing, not gliding forward almost at all.
So Silver just inside 100 meters here on this approach, has to swing it out over the OB again. And well thrown.
Yeah, really good backhand touch there. He's not particularly known for his backhand, but still has a very solid both distance and accuracy with the backhand. And Paul, going for the huge skip shot, unfortunately hits the one tree in the front of the basket at about 15 meters. He's going to have a long look at the par, but certainly not the result he was looking for there.
Yeah, from a really awkward stance. Looked like he hit the line he was intending to, and unfortunate lone tree. Jakub from 25 meters.
Also, this is another green that is a little bit safer compared to many greens on this course, but it's still sloping slightly from left to right from this angle. As you can see, Paul hitting the cage and the disc kind of trying to roll towards the OB. But even these safer greens on this course still always have some sort of trouble on them.
And Krokhol is going to draw some early blood on the goat. McBeth carding a bogey here on the fourth. Silver also carding a bogey, and you can see some of the early teeth that this course has. A nice healthy gallery. And the wind was up earlier in the day, and it's kind of down. This card teed at 4 p.m. One of the later tee times that you're going to see. We're all the way up here in Norway, guys. All right, we walk across the old golf fairway to the tee of hole 5, 175 meters. This is the shortest par 4 on the course. Most right-hand players are going to be throwing a big turnover shot. We might see some forehands that get you into position. There is this out of bounds that kind of brings in the difficulty of the hole here. You really have to shape something from left to right, land on the flat, and then you're left with anything from 80 meters to 100 meters into this pin, and this is one of the holes with rollaway potential behind the basket here.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's see if any of these players are feeling aggressive, because on this hole, with a huge drive, you can really make that approach insanely easy. But looks like Øyvind is going just for the safe forehand, trying to hang it out over the left side OB and fade well inbounds. And looks like he's done just that. That's a good position. He's got, as you said, about 80 to 90 meters to the basket from there.
Jakub going 12 speed here, needs more turn out of that, and he's not going to get it. You knew it right out of the hand, Elias.
Yeah, that's a somehow pretty common mistake on this hole, because you have to turn it surprisingly much to the right. If from this angle, if you just throw it forward, you're going to be OB every time. So Paul making sure to turn his disc over there, almost turning it over too much, challenging the right side woods, and he's maybe actually gone down the hill on the right side a little bit, but I expect it's still some sort of a shot to the basket from there.
That also needs to swing, and Silver does it, just blasting that forehand up there. He's got so much power from that pocket.
Yeah, very, very snappy arm movement from Silver. Really utilizing that elbow on his arm. As we see Jakub deciding to go right side of the last tree in front of the basket. This needs to slow down. Hits the right side long trees and settles. I think he's inside the circle there. Likely gonna have a look for the par. This also needs to slow down. As you see, the steep slope behind the basket, rolling down towards the next tee pad. That's an unfortunate break, but to be expected when he's going with a high-speed disc there with a lot of hyzer.
Yeah, Paul goes with that backdoor as well. You can see that you can really make this hole easy on yourself if you bite off distance off the tee. Silver's just going to toss this harp up there. And there's the difference between Silver and Øyvind's shot. Silver goes slow speed, checks up, while Øyvind, nearly in the bullseye, rolls all the way down the hill. And he might actually have a tricky up and down.
Yeah, hard to tell from the angle that we saw, but if you start rolling behind the basket, you could really roll about 20 to even 30 meters down the hill. So let's hope for the best that he doesn't have. Unfortunately, he does. He has rolled all the way down to the next tee pad. It's almost impossible to get to the basket from here. Although he almost threw it in from there.
What did we just see? He was 30 meters away from the pin. Nearly makes it on a forehand roller bounce. Man, what an unfortunate little roll there. Yep. McBeth up and in for the birdie. Good bounce back.
Yeah, that was some crazy action from Øyvind, and looks like he rolled way past the basket. I think we missed his putt from there, as we see Silver also getting the good birdie. This is one of the easier birdie holes on the course because it is quite short and you really need two very regular shots. Jakub with the bogey, unable to save the par after the OB drive. And Øyvind doing the same, really showing off that steep slope off this green. And we're gonna see a lot more of those today, I expect.
All right, we have another short walk. We just saw this tee pad because Øyvind rolled down to it. It's hole 6. It's 100 meters. We have this early gap right here that is maybe 6 meters across. And then this hole shapes severely from left to right. It's just soft enough of an angle that the forehand does play on this hole. You can throw it high as long as it's cruising from left to right on that hyzer. If you don't have that 100-meter forehand, the backhand turnover is going to be a popular play with a neutral mid-range.
Absolutely, and it's a very, very touchy shot. You have to really put it, especially with the backhand, you have to put it high in the gap and let it turn to the right all the way through the flight. As you can see, Paul going with something slightly understable. Turns it over a bit more than he would like, so he doesn't get the glide towards the right. So he's going to be short left about 20 meters, and there is no run from there, since it's another one of these insanely dangerous basket positions.
We're going to see how the forehand compares there, and that is an ideal shape. If he checked up, I believe he's close, but as Elias just informed us, there is a severe slope behind this pin. And that is the danger here on the 6th. If you do not commit to that forehand width, you're going to find yourself in jail early right side.
Yeah, very true. And you really want to hit this gap early, as Jakub does perfectly, because it's a very difficult approach from there. Even if you get lucky and bounce in the open, it's still very difficult from there. And Jakub kind of near Paul there, gonna have a layup from 20 meters. He's not a crazy man, he's not running that, I'm sure. Øyvind actually did get to the open, which is good, but this is a very touchy approach. He really needs to get this close to avoid any difficult putts. You can see the steep slope behind the basket. Hits it again on the edge of the bullseye, and he's rolling down to almost 10 meters there.
Yep, that's Krokhol for you guys. And watching Jakub shot, it really shows you the difficulty here. He had the angle, but he just straightened it out a little too much. So Paul overturned it, and they both kind of end up in the same position. Shows you kind of how touchy that backhand shot is.
Yeah, very true. It's an insanely precise angle that you have to throw. That's why I feel like the forehand is slightly easier. As we see, Silver did actually roll down the hill with the forehand. And that's so far uphill, you can really see it from this angle. Just sailing over the basket, and he's going to have a difficult putt left from there even.
Oh, and Øyvind sticks it. He hangs on to the last link there. And that is a tourniquet putt right there to stop the bleeding after rolling away and carding the bogey on the previous hole. What a catch.
That was an insane putt. And even from Silver, from 7 meters there, that's a very good putt with... that's pretty much a death putt, since if you miss that, you're in circle 2 for sure again. So some good putting there. And no birdies on this hole, but 4 pars is just okay. It's another very difficult birdie to get. Even though it's not far, you have to be very precise to get the birdie here.
All right, super short walk here over to the tee pad of 7. It's kind of elevated here in the woods. Another short par 4, just 193 meters. You have a couple of gaps off the tee to choose from. You can kind of throw this hyzer early and wide, or you can kind of throw something straight that drifts a little bit. Ideal tee shot is right around this rock. Super ideal would be above and past the rock on the flat. Most shots as you approach this green are blind. You can't really see the pin. You can just barely see the flag, and you can see it's up on this little ridge here, and left is not so good. Right is pretty good. There's a little bowl there that kind of collects shots.
Yeah, absolutely. If you go left or long of this basket on your approach, you almost certainly have no putts. So you're rolling down the hill, as we see Paul going with the straight gap, trying to turn it over a little bit to the right and fade back. He did turn over, but didn't quite fade back, so he will have to shape some sort of anhyzer or forehand hyzer approach from there, which makes the speed and angle control of the landing much more difficult on this hole.
And Silver not quite straightening that one up, and that is the danger here. It's going to fall down that cliff. There's almost no chance for birdie from down there.
Yeah, this is a very punishing hole if you fade left at any time of or any point on the hole. As we see Øyvind pretty much taking all the risk out with this hyzer shot. That's a very smart play. You can't get that much distance with it, but you're almost always on the fairway if you choose the hyzer. As he's pretty short there. Not a lot of distance, but he's going to have a look at the basket.
Jakub commits to that angle, getting a little bit of drift out of that 12 speed, and he's going to be in an ideal spot for a little turnover into the green. Nice little MDG drone shot right here. These guys have some of the best camera work in the business.
Yeah, for sure. And as we see, Øyvind having to deal with these trees in front of him just slightly, having to go with this high shot. Very difficult distance and angle control, but you can see he wanted to turn it rather to the right than fade left, because if you're on the right, you're going to have an easy par at least, but on the left, pretty much nothing. And Silver from the woods, having thrown overhand, that looks really difficult.
Yeah, and he hits the tree right in front of him. Jakub actually goes with the forehand and rolling deep. He's going to be just outside 10 meters. And Paul actually going to go just Luna. Little turnover here. And so precise. So much control on that little Annie to flat shot with the putter.
Yeah, very good touch from Paul. And once again, you can see the difference between the fast disc of Jakub and the slow disc of Paul. You know, Jakub landing on the edge of the bullseye once again, but the fast disc just not wanting to stop on this fast and sloped green. As we see Øyvind laying up from outside the circle, we saw Silver throwing a good pitch forehand under the basket. Let's see if Jakub can make it from here. Unfortunately not, and still has a bit of a putt left, although that should be no problem for him as he is the putting world champion.
Yeah, the putting world champ has had a few difficult putts that he has not connected on so far. Little cleanup here into some headwind, and he's up and in. And Paul McBeth is going to take the lone birdie here on the 7th. I would say that this is one of the easier holes on the course.
I agree. I think it's one of the certainly easier birdies since it's pretty short and it's a par 4 and the fairway is not incredibly tight, especially not compared to this hole 8.
Yeah, this is without a doubt the hardest hole on the course. It is a brand new tee position this year. They made it for the event, and it is just such a demanding tee shot. You have to try and hit something and land in this tiny little gap. Then you're throwing out over this little OB pocket right here. And we're headed down to the right and then back to the left. And this little pocket right here, it really is a par 5 that they're calling a par 4. I believe it played as 6.5 strokes. So 2.5 strokes over par, Elias.
Yeah, this is a crazy difficult hole. Let's see if any of these players can hit the gap. Looks like Paul has got the angle really nice. He actually does hit the gap, and wow, that's an insane drive. That is the best drive I have seen on this hole from the many shots that I have seen. In the middle of the fairway, and he's actually going to have a look at the elusive birdie, which sounds pretty ridiculous to say as this is such a difficult hole. And Silver doing the common mistake of slightly early releasing. The angle on this drive is slightly difficult because you want to hit through the gap with a hyzer, but this right side tree of the tee kind of limits that hyzer angle that you can throw.
Oh, and Øyvind getting a great little reaction back out into the mulch. What a difference to be like in the mulch on that flat versus in those little birch trees. Good looking line from Jakub, and that is that's ideal. It's about as good as a drive is really going to get here on the 8th.
Yeah, that's a pretty good set of drives. Paul with the best drive I have seen, and also Øyvind and Jakub on the fairway, which is, I think it's really rare to see 3 shots on the fairway on this hole. You can see Øyvind going aggressive. He wants to get over the OB area and hopefully fade left at the end towards the basket. He does not fade left, but he has got only about 30 meters to the basket from there. That's a great result.
Wow, yeah, he probably threw that 130 meters right there. That was a smoke job from Øyvind. And Silver just trying to pitch back up into the mulch and doesn't quite miss that last tree. That's going to be trouble. Almost certainly an instant bogey. Jakub from probably 130 out needed to commit to that Anheuser angle and fades out early. What's it like over there?
That can be really tough. I believe he's so short in the woods that he probably doesn't have a gap to go through to the basket. He might try it, but really it's a very tight tunnel from there if he wants to go to the basket. Silver going with a forehand roller, which is actually a very good play to get to the basket, but he needed to turn that over way more. He's going to be on the hillside to the right, about 50 meters downhill to the basket from there. And let's see what Paul does here. This is the perfect position. Looks like a pretty good angle here, but he needs to push it a bit more forward, I think, as he fades inside early to the left.
Yeah, you're never going to see a better tee shot than where Paul landed, and you can see just how difficult that second shot still is, even after you advance so far off the tee, and Paul just fades out early. And Silver throwing his 4th shot now. This is still kind of tricky. Oh, and he gets a little tree love right there. Kicks him down to the bullseye's edge.
Yes, and as often on this course, another very sloped green from the fairway towards the green. It's a very steep slope. As we saw, Jakub actually did have a look through the trees to the basket. Good approach there, both from Jakub and from Øyvind. And let's see if Paul can get that incredible birdie on this hole. Really good run.
So after Paul's putt, we just had 3 players out of 122 players, guys, card a birdie 3. Bradley Williams, Ronnie Luukkonen, and Morten Christensen. Nice work, guys.
Yep, and all of those players, very good drivers. So this hole, as we said, requires insane preciseness with your shots and a lot of distance too.
So we got a pretty steep walk up the hill to the tee pad of 9, and then we continue to climb here on the 9th. It's just 85 meters, probably plays more like 100 meters. And we have this tight gap off the tee, maybe 4 meters from left to right. And this entire fairway kind of slopes from left to right. And then this basket is slightly elevated. We had just a little headwind coming down the tunnel today.
Yeah, very true. And the headwind making it slightly more difficult since you want to throw something straight on this straight hole. Many players are opting for a straight, stable mid-range or even a fairway driver, since you have to hit this shot very low and ideally skip it off the hillside and get to the basket. As we see, Paul is doing pretty much just that, hopefully skipping to the basket, and that's a perfect shot.
Yeah, I think Paul is going Athena there, his latest release in the Paul McBeth lineup. And Øyvind going mid-range here and just barely tugs on it a little. He's maybe 15 meters.
Yeah, still a decent result, and this is actually one of the safer greens on the course, which still is made a little bit less safe with the elevated basket, but the green itself is pretty flat here.
And great looking release from Jakub. No, and he hits the rock. What a terrible reaction. It looked like the best drive of the group so far and just doesn't quite climb the last bit.
Yeah, you can really see how much uphill this is, as Jakub looked like he was all the way up there, but not quite. Silver choosing this left side gap, which is a good option. for the forehand or the turnover. He absolutely hammers it through the gap and is actually long on this uphill hole, which is pretty impressive with a hyzer forehand.
Yeah, that's really hard to do. And when you walk up on this tee pad, it almost looks like the forehand left side is the gap, but then you start to throw it, and it's just so hard to make it to the basket as Øyvind connects from circle 2 there. That gets him back under par on the front 9. He's been grinding away.
Yeah, great putt as we take another look. Look at that spinny delivery he's got. Really nice stroke. And catches the left side. These baskets catch on the left side very well. So he probably knows that. And great putt there from outside the circle.
Oh, Jakub floats it nose up, but just needed a couple more rotations. Silver coming back at it. Just a little low, doesn't connect.
Yeah, unfortunate there. A little bit low left, hitting the cage and chains. If he had just gotten over the cage there, I think he might have caught the basket. And you can see Paul with just a 5 meter putt left for the birdie. Really showing off that perfect drive, and that's a great birdie to push him actually 3 under on the front 9, which is that's a good score for the front 9, which I think is more difficult of the 2 9s.
All right, taking a look at our scores through the front 9. Paul McBeth shooting 3 down. Øyvind 1 down. Silver and Jakub 1 over. Matthias at 5 under on the front. And Elias, you shot 4 down on the front. How'd that feel?
Yeah, that was a very clean front 9. And really, that's the moment I understood that the front 9 is the more difficult of the 2 9s, because I felt like I played almost perfect. But yeah, let's see how these guys can battle the back 9. See you guys there.